financial crime. Over to you, Mr. Charles.
Yes, thank you very much, Dina. Yes, like she had said, today we are starting with financial crime. And if we look at what is happening today in our country, if not all over the world, recently they had this Pandora papers, a big Pandora box. And the question I was asking legal expert was, if I, Charles, my name is on that list, does it mean I've committed a crime? Have I committed any financial crime? You know, but I think we'll allow the lawyers to tell us whether. But I know, even as an educated person, not a learned person, that it's only the courts that can make a pronouncement that somebody is guilty. So the other agencies can only prosecute, investigate. Everything still has to come to the courts for the judge or the jury to say whether somebody is guilty or not. But we need to give that foundation. We need to understand what is financial crime. Because as a stockbroker, a financial therapist, financial planner, you come across certain things, certain people talk to you, and they are so ignorant about financial crime. You know, so in this series, we are going to ensure that that knowledge gap is taken care of. Because if you operate in the economy, you don't need to be a financial expert. You don't need to be an accountant. You don't need to be a banker. You need to understand what is financial crime. I can even go further to say what is economic crime. So today we are laying the foundation for what is financial crime. So financial crime over the last 30 years has increasingly become of concern to governments throughout the world. We saw the Pandora's papers. This concern arises from a variety of issues because the impact of financial crime varies in different contexts. And I normally give this example. If as a stockbroker I have a client, I don't even really know what he does. Of course, I will have said I have gone against KYC. But if it shows me that this is his shop, and I go there, I see his shop, he's selling whatever item, or he owns this particular restaurant, or he owns this nightclub, I see that he's doing business. And he comes to my house one day and said, okay, open the box and said, look, this is 5 million naira cash. I should invest for him. And I advised him, I said, no, we don't collect cash. We'll help you make payments at the bank. And I carried this cash, got to my office, asked the people in the office, okay, please help this client just across, in fact, the same building, that is a bank there, and they go in there to pay in that cash. Let's say 1 million naira. Of course, they collect teller, and I asked him to put his mandates, send to compliance. Everything is done, the process is done, and all that. His KYC is okay, and I trade for him. I execute. Now, if it turns out that he was arrested somewhere, maybe where Lagos he was arrested somewhere, maybe in Calabar, that he was involved in an armed robbery issue. He's an armed robber. That means I have actually laundered money for that customer. And that is a financial crime. So it is not only when politicians steal money we say it's financial crime. In our client, the agencies will go after them. No. Or bankers, or even stockbrokers. So we need to understand the different contexts when we're talking about financial crime. Okay, so it is today widely recognized that the prevalence of economically motivated crime in many societies is a substantial threat to the development of economics and their stability. You can see now, economic crime is also financial crime. And that's why we have Economic and Financial Crime Commission in Nigeria that takes care of that. Okay. It is possible to divide financial crimes into two, essentially different, although closely related types of conduct. First, there are those activities that dishonestly generate wealth for those engaged in the conduct in question. For example, the exploitation of insider information. Stockbrokers will know that when you use inside information to have undue advantage in the market, either you are selling to reduce your loss, or you are buying to take advantage of that inside information. So for example, the exploitation of insider information or the acquisition of another person's property by deceit, obtained by false pretense, what we have seen today, will invariably be done with the intention of securing a material benefit. Alternatively, a person may engage in deceit to secure material benefit for another. So we can see that we can classify Ponzi scheme, 419, obtaining by false pretext, as one aspect of financial crime. Second, there are also financial crimes that do not involve the dishonest taking of a benefit, but that protect a benefit that has already been obtained, or to facilitate the taking of such benefits. An example of such conduct is where someone attempts to launder criminal proceeds, like the first example I gave, of another offense, in order to place the proceed beyond the reach of the law. So you can see that my hypothetical customer was an armed robber, and I was now assisting him to launder that money, because if I have bought for him, the next thing he will come and say, okay, sell it, buy this, and before you know what, we have already gone through the phases of money laundering, which is placement, layering, and of course integration into the financial system. So you can see that is another form of a financial crime. So the proceed, an example of such conduct where someone attempts to launder criminal proceeds of another offense in order to place the proceeds beyond the reach of the law. So if you are considering developing, that's what you're trying to do here now, a career in anti-money laundering, you have to find out more about where you can do that. It's very, very straightforward and easy. In fact, we even have to ask most of our compliance officers to have a better understanding of financial crime, because they will be dealing with money laundering issues and all that, and they have to advise their firms on what to do in terms of money laundering. Who commits financial crime? That is my first question. Who commits financial crime? Because they say that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. There are essentially 7 groups of people who commit various types of financial crime. 7 groups. Let's see one of them. 1, organized criminals, including terrorist groups, are increasingly perpetuating large-scale fraud to fund their operation. Yes, organized criminals, including terrorist group. A terrorist group can have drug syndicates. A terrorist group can have a lot of illegal things they do just to generate funds to take care of their operation. So we can see that organized criminals, including terrorist group, commit financial crime. 2, corrupt heads of states may use their position and powers to loot the coffers of their often impoverished countries. Of course, it can also be countries that are advanced also. Business leaders or senior executives manipulate or misreport financial data in order to misrepresent a company's true financial position. We have seen that as stockbrokers. We have seen that as market abuse is also one of a market abuse. Is a financial crime where senior business leaders, you manipulate or misreport financial data in order to misrepresent a company's true financial position. So that is also a financial crime. Employees from the most senior to the most junior steal company funds and other assets. From outside the company, fraud can be perpetrated by a customer. Yes. Of course, we will say in connivance with the employees, suppliers, contractors, or by a person with no connection to the organization. Yes, it's possible. It's possible. But of course, law enforcement will always say there must be an insider. But there are cases where you might not even have an insider and that crime will be committed. Increasingly, the external fraudster is colluding with an employee to achieve bigger and better results more easily, as I've said earlier. So, finally, the successful individual criminal, serial or opportunistic fraudsters in possession of their proceeds are a further group of people who have committed financial crime. Okay, so we have seen the categories of people who can commit financial crime. Okay, now the next question will now be, what are the main types of financial crime? Financial crime is commonly considered as covering the following offenses: fraud, electronic crime. We have seen so many in Nigeria today. Money laundering, terrorist financing, bribery and corruption, market abuse, and insider dealing. And of course, information security is also classified as types of financial crime. So, how is financial crime linked to terrorist financing? Terrorist organizations require financial support in order to achieve their aims. And a successful terrorist group, like any criminal organization, is therefore one that's able to build and maintain an effective financial infrastructure. It's generally believed that terrorist organizations raise funds by the following means. Let's see how they raise funds. Maybe we'll conclude from there. Legitimate source, such as abuse of charities or legitimate businesses. In fact, we even have converts who do their business legitimately, earn their salary, and send a percentage to a group that they believe in their cause. They send money to them. Self-financing through their members or sympathizers. Of course, criminal activity. They rustle cattle, they carry people's farm product, they go and sell and all that. Of course, we have seen cases where the state also sponsor terrorist group. Activities in failed state and other safe havens. Terrorists often control funds from a variety of sources around the world and employ increasingly sophisticated techniques to move these funds between jurisdictions. To manage their finances, they draw on the service of professionals such as bankers, accountants, lawyers, stockbrokers, and take advantage of a range of financial services products. Okay, so we have seen how a terrorist group, which is a main financial crime stakeholder. We'll stop here for today, and when we meet next time, we'll be looking at how should a firm react to a suspected fraud. We need to lay this foundation, what financial crime is all about, who commits financial crime, and the categories of financial crime, before we now bring it home to the agency that is responsible to begin to fight financial crime in